They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Jen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome to They're All Dead, Dave, the Red Dwarf review podcast. We are making our way through every single episode of Red Dwarf, myself and my co-host Adam.
Hello.
If you haven't listened to the show before, what are you doing starting in episode 5? We're 5 episodes in. Go back and start from the beginning. But just in case you don't want to do that, or just to explain our situation, I am a fan of many years of Red Dwarf, been watching it since the 90s, whereas Adam is much more newer to it.
Yes, this is my first watch through, if you like. I've for context, as always, I've only seen odd clips before, some odd images, but I've never fully sat down and watched Red Dwarf. So I'm rectifying this right now through this podcast, and so far, so good for the most part. I think we can say over the last 4 episodes, I've on the whole been enjoying myself.
You're not abandoning the podcast after the first.
No,
series,
I haven't come to Philip and said, "Oh, this is awful. I can't do this." No, I am enjoying it for the most part. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're up to episode 5, Confidence and Paranoia, in which Lister goes where he shouldn't and gets a bit of a bug. He goes into a non-decontaminated area, picks up a bit of a bug, which has some, let's say, strange consequences.
Yeah. Very strange.
Fish falling from the sky and exploding old ye olde worldy mares. Are just 2 of the things that happen.
Yeah, amongst other things. I mean, obviously, I think the big part, of course, is in the title, isn't it? Confidence and Paranoia. Our Lister gets these 2 new manifestations of his personality, and I guess just to jump into that first, if you don't mind, what I loved about those side characters, Confidence and Paranoia, was they didn't just get Craig Charles to film something else twice over, if that makes sense, because we've seen in the show so far, we've had scenes where Rimmer's had 2 of himself and it's been the same actor, and we've had that double play. So it's nice to see them sort of completely turn it on its head, and not so you're not thinking, oh, it's going to be 2 more Craig Charleses. You've got 2 new actors, and they're both great in portraying those wildly different virtues, confidence and paranoia.
Yeah, definitely, because they could have easily just sort of dressed him up in a couple of different outfits, or just had him act a little bit differently. But I don't think we would have got as much of a contrast between the 2 of them if we'd had that. No slight on Craig Charles' acting abilities or anything, but I just don't think it would have been quite as dramatic a difference if we'd had him playing all, himself plus his 2 alter egos.
Absolutely. And weirdly, and I don't know why, a crossover for you Doctor Who fans, Paranoia really reminded me of Nyder from Genesis of the Daleks, but I don't know why.
So, how are you anyway? Isn't that a huge spot appearing on your so-called face? My God, you've got fat, haven't you? Must be all that lager.
Maybe it was like the voice or something, but it just...
He has the same sort of shaped face, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. At first I was like, is that Peter Miles? But I did check in the credits. It's not. But yeah.
Before we got to any of that sort of stuff, though, the episode started with Lister watching a very sort of melodramatic drama on the screen and getting interrupted by Holly, which I found hilarious. Constantly, every couple of seconds, they'd be just getting to the pivotal moment where somebody was about to say that somebody had just said they were dying, and then Holly would appear on the screen and the film would stop, and he'd be like, "You right, Dave? What are you up to? You doing anything? Are you busy?"
I think it's the best thing. Yeah, I think it's the best examples of where the sort of whole deadpan thing that Holly is about works really well. Because I think there's some occasions, not that we've seen it too much yet, but I think there's some occasions where that humour either doesn't fit for whatever, for certain scenes and stuff, but that sort of interruption that you described works perfectly for that sort of deadpan delivery.
Yeah, there might be some places where it doesn't fit, but I don't think we've encountered that yet. I think every time Holly has come on screen, I have absolutely loved it. He's actually my favourite character of the series so far, I think.
Yeah, I think that Norman Lovett actually. I think what people don't realize sometimes is the focus on intonation for deadpan is so important, because it's very easy to just do it deadpan but with no thought about certain words. Are you going to rise on this word? Are you going to go low? Do you know what I mean? It's that weird thing of, if you literally just speak it deadpan with nothing else, it will sound like you are bored but without any of that extra flair. Whereas what Norman does, I think, so brilliantly is he gets across that it's that deadpan bored delivery, but with the way sometimes he speaks the words or leaves certain pauses for punchlines, it brings that extra life out of it. So I'm glad they clearly got an actor they knew who could do that sort of style.
Yeah. And I think this might be like one of the most extended Holly scenes we've had. Like, it goes on, it doesn't go on too long. It goes on just the right amount of time, but it feels like we're getting a nice meaty bit of Holly in this. And again, it sets up some jokes which play in again later, because at this point he's read he comes on and says he's bored because he's read every single book that has ever existed. And there's a topical joke in there I think from the 80s about the worst book ever being Kevin Keegan's. I can't remember what the book was called now. Can you?
I can't remember the title, no, but I caught the Kevin Keegan line and thought, yeah.
I think that might have been a book that actually came out. I'm not sure. Around that time.
I mean, the limitations of the 80s. There was two moments that made me laugh unintentionally. I think near the start when Lister is watching that drama, I just noticed, and I don't know why my eyes flitted to this, because it zooms out from the monitor. I saw that classic Sony logo at the bottom, and I was like, how mad that in the far future we're still using Sony CRT TVs. And I know, it was of the time, it's production. Look at any sci-fi show from the 1980s. They're definitely using a CRT TV, and they're probably using a Sony one at that. But I don't know, it just made me chuckle.
Sony is an enduring brand, clearly, that goes on far into the future, and
we've abandoned flat screens.
And they've abandoned flat screens. Retro. Everybody, it's probably retro, like a 1980s retro era.
Like it wasn't a detriment to the episode by any means. It just, I don't know, it just made me chuckle. I think just seeing it really,
You mentioned technology. The thing I noticed in that scene was the keyboard that he was typing on, which, although there was no brand names, I swear it looks like a Commodore 64 keyboard.
It probably was. It probably was like when he starts typing, just hearing like the bashing of the keys, that classic like chunky sound.
It's the right color. The keys are the right color. It's the right shape. I used to have a Commodore 64, and I swear that must be a Commodore 64 keyboard. And so that's what I noticed.
It was probably definitely like a. Let's face it, shows of that time, like, definitely a cost-saving measure, wasn't it? They were like, right, we need a keyboard. We can't really afford to design a futuristic, like, touch panel one, maybe. Just throw the Commodore 64 on that. Because I guess you can get away with it because, A, it's a sitcom, but also it's not that important to the overall plot. So I think, Red Dwarf
it's on screen for a few
with
minutes.
like that.
Only people like me would notice.
Don't worry. If I notice TV, you notice the keyboard. Together, we've got all our obscure 80s references absolutely covered.
Absolutely. And then Holly asks him to remove Agatha Christie from his memory because then he can read it again. Which is the thing that sets up the recurring joke throughout the episode, because he does delete Agatha Christie, and almost immediately he's like,
I've done it.
Done what?
Erased Agatha Christie.
Who's she then?
Holly, you just asked me to erase all Agatha Christie novels from your memory.
Why should I do that? I've never heard of her.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think that's absolute props to Norman Lovett's delivery, because, again, I think that sort of joke, I think, relies on that very quick timing when you first reveal it. Right, delete Agatha Christie. I've done it. I've deleted Agatha Christie. Agatha who? Like, if that was any more laboured, then I think it would have instantly just gone. Do you know what I mean? It needed to be bang, bang, bang. And I think, obviously, Norman Lovett and the script editors, directors, they understood that. So, like you say, it came off really, really well.
And then the recurring thing is that he keeps on coming back up again and again with like he's partly way through the novels, and somebody will ask him a question like, "Oh, what's happening, Holly?" And then he's like, "Well, Poirot's just stepped off the train, the steam train."
Yeah. No, again, I mean, as we've said, just very well-placed dialogue, well-placed comedy, well-placed timing. I can't count the amount of comedy shows I've seen where you realize how when you watch enough of them, like how much timing plays into it, and like jokes that are too labored or said too quickly just kill the whole vibe. But no, this one so far has been right on the money with timing.
Kachansky gets mentioned again. This has been a running theme for Lister in this series. He's been doing something which is a bit questionable. He's been looking through her dream logs in the officers' quarters. Dave.
Come on, Dave.
That's not on.
Bit
Dave.
Morally reprehensible. So.
Clearly, he's been taken in by all the soppy melodrama he's been watching, and has gotten a bit nostalgic. So he's been looking through her dreams. But because it was in the officers' quarters, he got which haven't been decontaminated.
Nope.
He caught some kind of bug, and as we said, some strange things start to happen.
Hilarity ensues. I mean, the fish thing caught me very off guard at first because it was like the last thing. I mean, it's the last thing probably anyone would expect. Fish just start dropping from the top of the screen, and you're like, what is going on? And I mean, I couldn't tell. There was one shot where I think it was like showing a pile of them on the floor, and it was so quick I couldn't tell if they'd used live fish or if they were not alive. So I thought, if they are live, I'm sure for some people watching now that will rouse tempers. But I mean, on the whole, the joke, I think it works because it's so random. Do you know what I mean? As I say, it's like you'd say, right, weird things are going to start happening. What do you think is going to happen? I think fish falling from the sky is maybe one of the last things you'd think of. And
Dave, just before that, is asleep and dreaming, and he's going, get an umbrella.
Yeah. A brilliant setup for it as well. Like this is, I think in terms of setups and payoffs for the jokes in this episode, I'd say this one out of the 5 so far has been the strongest in my opinion. Purely for getting, I think this is the one I've laughed the most at so far. I think.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a good one. I really enjoy it too. I don't know if it's which one did I previously say? See, I've forgotten already. There was one that I previously said that I laughed at the most. I don't think I laughed at it more than that one, but it is a good one. I do really like it, especially once the confidence and paranoia turn up. They're really bold sort of characters. Both of them, like one literally his characteristics are bold, but also just like the paranoia. He's just like the mannerisms, everything was perfect about it.
Absolutely, and I think, I mean, paranoia and confidence, as you say, they go for that polar opposite view. Right down to the costumes, the presentation of the voice and stuff, and it's a nice. This is what I wrote. It's a nice take on like the angel and devil cliche you see in a lot of things, like the angel and devil. Rather than do that, it's basically the same thing in a way, you could argue. Both of them I think at times are the angel and both of them are the devil, but instead of just going for that cliche, they sort of give it, if you like, a Red Dwarf spin, which I really enjoyed.
What do you think, like do you think there was like a message to this because I kind of got the feeling that there might have been like something about overconfidence can be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, what it spoke to me was just the sort of thing about, I think, balance, sort of find, how realistically, confidence and paranoia, if you distilled it all the way down, it's sort of saying, you could argue good or bad. But either, I think, can be good or bad depending on circumstances. Like, there's some circumstances where to feel paranoia could only be natural, depending on what that circumstance is. And if you didn't feel paranoia, you might be deemed, inhuman or whatever. But I think what I'm trying to say is, to sum it up, is both confidence and paranoia need to exist in our psyche, I think, to vet. But then it's up to us to what various degrees we let it influence us. And I think what I got from this was it showed, arguably in both cases, how each one can be sort of pushed maybe to a dangerous or unhealthy extreme, should we say? Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's epitomized when they're outside the ship. And side note, I love the dancing outside the ship, the cha-cha-charing outside the ship. Also, great sort of set and model work again on the outside of the ship. That was that looked fantastic, and it was nice. It's nice when you get those moments in the show because a lot of it is very grey. I've said that before, but to get some big splashes of color like the side of the ship is quite nice. So I like the fact that they went outside the ship. But then when to sort of emphasize that overconfidence can be dangerous, confidence sort of like says, first of all, he admits that he killed Paranoia and damaged the medical equipment to stop Dave getting better. Then he's like, "Oh, take off your helmet, Dave. You'll be fine. You're the champ." You know, giving him all that, trying to give him that confidence to do something that will kill him.
Yeah, and thankfully Dave shows a bit more sense than that, thankfully. But
yeah, and then confidence himself goes, "Look, I'll do it." And he takes off his helmet and, of course, his head explodes.
Yeah, see, that was the moment to me, I think, sort of summarised the message that it tries to get across. And it actually reminded me, I won't dwell on it for long because it's a bit darker, but it reminded me exactly of, in school when, like, you're outside and it's it's stupid, but the chicken game, like crossing the road without looking or whatever. And, you do have those people in school who are like, "Oh, come on, like you can do it, it's easy." And you're like, no, like confidence. And then they go, "Oh, it's so easy, I can do it." And then, sadly, someone along the way will get hurt. But I don't know why, it just sort of panged. Maybe it was the way the scene played out, like dialogue-wise, the way he said it like that. "Oh, I'll do it." It just really sparked that sort of memory, that peer pressure, and then how that overconfidence can lead to tragic consequences,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cat was also in this episode.
He was, and I wrote, because obviously right off the gate, he's doing his usual prancing around, being very energetic, very flamboyant, and then he starts being, I can't remember the line word for word, but about like, "Oh, I want to have sex with something," or something like that.
Tomorrow, I'm gonna see if I can have sex with something. Ow, yeah!
And obviously, like, the idea of sex in this show isn't a no point, because they've referenced it several times. It's clear, they've sort of said it's okay to make jokes about it. But I think it just took me by surprise because we haven't heard, at least I think we haven't, that kind of joke from Kat yet. I think it's mainly just been about the flamboyance and, "Oh, I'm looking good, I'm looking fine." But yeah, so I think when I just heard him say it like so brazenly and out of nowhere, I didn't not enjoy it. I found it hilarious, but do you know what I mean? It took me by surprise. It's like, "Oh, right, we're doing this now."
Yeah. Yeah, and he's sort of dancing along the corridor going like, "SCX, I'm gonna get you. SCX, I'm gonna have you," something like that. And then he comes across, this is a lot earlier on in the episode, Lister, who has collapsed ill on the floor after getting this bug. And he's like, before he registers that it's Lister, he's like, "SCX, I think I found you."
Yeah. Which Lister is an ill man, bit morally reprehensible, but I get it. In terms of the joke, yeah, I did right. Cat did make me laugh a lot in this episode, probably more than he has done so far. For anyone who hasn't listened, I mean, you should have listened to the previous ones if you're on episode 5. But I've said, I think by episode 4, I felt Cat's character was starting to feel like he's flamboyant. He says he's looking good, and that's about it. So in a way, it was nice, even though it was like a small thing. It was nice that they gave him those extra new jokes for him. It made it feel more fresh, because I was worried. They are
still all. I know what you mean. They are still all very much. It's still the trope of, hey, he's a human-looking person doing cat things. He's spraying his territory. He's going out seeking a mate. He's licking his clothes clean when he cleans them. So it's all of the sort of cat things, but there just seemed to be a lot. It seemed to be more of a focus on him a bit more this episode in terms of giving it. Just felt fresher, I guess.
That's it. As I say, like, it just, I really didn't want them to go into this and then being like, oh, if the whole thing again was just him saying I'm looking good over and over again, I'd be a bit like, okay, guys, come on, you can surely write more cat jokes for this guy. But that they have started to do it now, and I hope, long may that continue. You can still have that I'm looking good jokes, because they do work. But I think for a time in the first 4 episodes, when it sort of, to me at least, felt like the only joke, if that makes sense, I was like, okay, well, obviously, in any joke, you can only tell it the same one in a row a certain amount of times before it stops being funny. So yeah, just new jokes. I'm all for it. Good on them.
And then I suppose we get to the bit at the end where Lister has retrieved Kachansky's hologram disc, because that was the plan all along. That was Confidence's plan to get him to get the disc, because they've decided that they can, by shutting down some systems on certain parts of the ship, Holly might be able to sustain 2 holograms. So he finds Kachansky's disc, and Rimmer is all very much like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Don't do this. You won't. It won't be as good as you think it is."
Yeah.
And then he boots up the disc, and another Rimmer appears.
Yeah, Lister's worst nightmare, I think. So.
Because of course he's hidden the discs. Not only did he hide the discs, but he's obviously swapped a copy of himself with Kachansky's disc, because he knew that Lister would be going for Kachansky's disc.
But I mean, how typical is that of Rimmer, that he'd think, right, where's the obvious place I'd hide it? Now I'm going to find a different place. Do you know what I mean? I thought that's a perfect, subtle, representation of the kind of man Rimmer is. He always wants to be like one step ahead and outwit, especially with Dave, because, he sees Dave as a bit of a, not as intelligent. I think that's fair to say. So I think any chance to outwit him, to have that moment where he goes, well, actually, I've outplayed you. I think, any chance like that, of course he's going to do it.
I was trying to think if there was anything else. Oh yeah, I was going to mention the from a lot earlier on in the episode. There's Rimmer mentions, or Lister mentions, that Rimmer was a member of the Love Celibacy Society.
Yeah,
which just made me think of incels. It just
modern day incels.
It's modern day incels, isn't it?
Come on, Rimmer. The only reason you knocked around with those prats from the Love Celibacy Society is you could never get a date.
No, it wasn't. I happen to agree with their philosophy that love is a sickness that holds back your career and makes you want to spend all your money.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because obviously they make that reference, obviously it's in the past, but then we've had moments of Rimmer already making jokes about wanting to... What was the one, I think, in episode 4 when he's like, imagine having sex... what was it? Lister's like, imagine having sex with a...
with a six-breasted woman.
That's it. And then he just goes, imagine having sex with a woman, So he's made those illusions that he's interested. But yeah, it was interesting to hear that in his past he was very much, let's just say it, very much in his past he was an incel, by all accounts. Thank goodness he got out of that when he grew older. But
yeah, that was just something I noticed that I thought would be fun to mention. I thought, though, the hallucination stuff, I thought they could have done a bit more with it. They kind of did the 2 jokes, and then they introduced the fish and the
crier, the town crier.
Town crier, that was it. They combusted. And then you got confidence and paranoia. I don't know. There was something else, but then again, it only did happen while he was asleep, so maybe there wasn't room for it. I don't know. It kind of felt like they could have done a bit more weird stuff with it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Part of me thinks, is it maybe... I mean, because obviously these episodes are only in like a 20, 25-minute time slot, so maybe it was... Maybe, who knows, maybe originally they'd written for maybe more hallucinations, and then time was its cruel mistress and had to cut some. But I do understand what you mean in retrospect. Maybe it would have been nice to see even more hallucinations or more wacky varieties before we got to confidence and paranoia. But yeah, I don't know. I think just how... Because I thought this episode was actually quite well paced in terms of, things happening and events happening. But which makes me think maybe it was a time issue. But yeah, no, I'd vouch for that as well. If they gave me the option, I'd like to include some more hallucinations as well, just for variety's sake,
So, is there anything else you had down that you'd like to talk about in the episode?
I would like to mention, with Paranoia, I do find it funny, but also very interesting on a subtle level how there's a side... Because obviously it's born from Lister, these are his subconscious. There is a part of him that does respect and gives consideration to what Rimmer says. Like, because it might happen later, but so far in the show, most things Rimmer tells Lister to do or advises him, he doesn't do it. It's in his nature, he just doesn't do it. But with Paranoia, every turn when Confidence is saying, oh, we should do this, we should do that, and Paranoia is saying no. I know it's a heightened extreme, but I don't know, I just found it really interesting that deep down there is a part of Dave that does really respect and pay hearance to what Rimmer has to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah, because you should listen to Mr. Rimmer. He's much smarter than you are and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I thought maybe that could be I mean, obviously I'm looking way subtle into it. It might not be the intention, but that to me said, it's like the part in all of us, like that insecurity that there's that, oh, maybe we aren't as smart as we think we are, or maybe we aren't as clever or as like good or whatever it is. I just think it was nice to see that personified in Dave, because obviously the nature of his character is he's a slob, but I'd say for the most part he's quite sure of himself in a lot of respects. He knows what he likes, he knows what he wants to do. So it's nice to see the opposite of that fleshed out, not even through Dave himself, but through a form of his subconscious. I don't know. I really liked it. I got a lot of subtle subtext from it, even if it wasn't the intention. It's what I've formed in my head, and I think that's what made me really enjoy this episode. And I might be jumping the gun, but if we were going to say fave characters from this episode, I think mine would be Paranoia, just from that subtext that I got. To be honest.
I was going to say Paranoia as well for my favourite character. It was between him and Holly at the beginning, to be honest, and the fact that Holly kept on popping up with his Agatha Christie comments. That was good as well, but I have picked Holly in another episode as my favourite character. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Paranoia, my favourite character. Did you have a funniest moment?
Oh yeah, the stab him gag.
Oh yes.
I don't know what it was, but just the way, right, stab him! What? Stab him! Stab him! Like, it's just like, it was a very simple joke, but it made me laugh a lot.
This is where one of the sort of scuttlers is, the Rimmer's motioning, sort of just trying discreetly for him to sort of stab him with a syringe, stab Paranoia with a syringe to knock him unconscious, presumably. And, the scuttlers are useless at this sort of thing.
Pretty much.
So they didn't do it, and Rimmer's like,
Now, stab him, quick, stab him! You haven't met Stab him. He's one of our scutters.
I don't know, it just, again, very, very simple jokes like that, but again, the timing, the shots of it just really tickled me. It really made me laugh out loud, so that was definitely my favourite moment. What was your funniest moment, Phil?
I think I've already actually quoted my favourite moment, which is one of the Holly moments where he comes back and talks about Agatha Christie, and he's talking about Hercule Poirot. Just they say, "Oh, what's happening, Holly?" Because they're talking about like what's happening with the fish and stuff like that. And,
yeah.
And Holly just sort of goes,
Hercule Poirot's just stepped off the steaming train. And if you want my opinion, I think they all did it.
which, it was a nice callback to earlier, and that cracked me up. Norman Lovett's performance there was brilliant, and so yeah, that was my favorite moments of the episode. Funniest moment even. What would you give this episode out of 5? How many scuttlers out of 5?
Ooh, I've been tossing this in my head for a while now, because I'm gonna give it a 4.5 actually. I have been batting between that and actually giving it a full 5, but I think I know, but I think when I give top marks to anything, I really have to, watch it, think at the time, and then look back on it and still think like instantly, that's a top marker.
I'm starting to think we should have done this out of 10, because it gives you more of a flexibility, doesn't it, to sort of on your grading.
Well, maybe when we jump to season 2, we can expand our horizons.
Maybe we will.
Yeah,
in the meantime, I've given it 4.
Okay, yeah. What for you makes it lose that final crucial point?
Well, because I gave an episode earlier on in the series 4.5, I think, and that was I still think is my favorite, sort of funniest, the episode I found the most amusing, and my favorite episode. So I had to reflect that this one was slightly lower than that, so I gave it a 4.
That's fair. 4 out of 5, man. That's still good.
It's still a really good episode, and definitely one of my highlights out of the rewatch so far.
Yeah, I'd say for me at the minute, because I think the only other episode, I can't remember if I gave it 4 or 4.5. I think I gave it 4.5. At the minute, this one is tying for me with the opening episode, the very first one. I think opinions change. Maybe once I've seen more of the series, I'll look back on this one and it might get bumped up that extra 0.5, because there were times where I thought, that's a 5 out of 5. But at the minute, at the time of this recording, I'm going to say 4.5, yeah.
Excellent. Right, well, that's it. That's, I think, all we've got to say on the matter. We will be back for another episode next week to cover the finale of Series 1 of Red Dwarf. Me Too, or Me Squared, or however you want to say it.
I didn't know that at first, because obviously I saw the title on Netflix and it just says Me Too, and I thought, oh, heck, that's topical these days. But then obviously in the title sequence it's stylized as you say, Me Squared. So I think I've written in brackets squared, so I'll try and call it Me Squared, but Me Too works as well. So.
Yeah. Just to say also that as just before recording this episode, I've got some new artwork in for the podcast, which you guys listening at home might have seen since day one. But we record these in advance, and we're up to episode 5, and we haven't put one out yet. So that is why I'm only referencing things like the people that are working on the music and the people that are working on the artwork and stuff after the fact that. And not since episode 1. So we've got some brilliant illustrations done by Sophie Isles, who has drawn both me and Adam and the ships, both Red Dwarf and Starbug, which are being used in various places. If you're watching on YouTube, they're probably in front of you on the screen right now.
Yeah, and they're gorgeous. Thank you, Sophie, if you're listening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so they're great. Do go check out Sophie on Twitter, and I'll leave all her links in the YouTube description and any other descriptions down below as well. And she also streams her drawing on Twitch quite a lot as well, so go check out that. Talking of social medias and places on the internet where we can find people, where can we find you, Adam?
Okay, so with me, I'm mainly on YouTube and Twitter. So on YouTube, just type in Adam Martyn, that's Martyn with the Y, and my channel should pop up. I do videos on a variety of topics, Doctor Who, now that's what I call music, classic TV history stuff, just a lot really. Hopefully there'll be something you'll like, so come and check us out there. And on Twitter, I'm Adam Martyn Actor, just give us a follow. I do giveaways from time to time, I tweet about things I'm passionate about, I often get involved with discourse revolving around memes, which is always a good laugh, but just come follow me there. What about you, Philip? Shout out yourself.
You can find me on Twitter at IUDEX_Phil. I won't try and pronounce that because it's not pronounced how it sounds. At the moment, anyway, I might change it and then I'll confuse you all. People will be listening to this podcast years to come and be searching.
Where is he?
Account. Yeah. If that's the case, it's because I've changed it. But for the moment, it is that. And of course, you can find me on YouTube. You may be watching this on YouTube, or you may be listening to it on another podcast platform, but you can find me talking about all sorts of geeky pop culture like Doctor Who, Star Trek, other things on there. And I'm, wrapping up talking about Time Lord Victorious. I've had a series called The Canon Update, which has been covering that and everything we learn in the Time Lord Victorious Doctor Who events. Have you got anything interesting coming up soon? I mean, this is an interesting one to talk about because actually we don't know when we're releasing this yet. So, I mean, long term, have you got any long term plans for your channel?
Well, at the minute of time of recording, all I can say is I am working with a team called 4 Inclusion, which is a division of Channel 4. That good old blocky Channel 4. At the time of recording, I can't say too much on what it is about, but maybe by the time this is out, it's already happened. If you want to know if it's happened, go to Twitter, type in 4, the number 4 Inclusion, and if it's happened, the project will be there on Twitter. If it hasn't happened, follow them anyway, and you'll hopefully see it as it comes.
Fantastic. Right, we will see you in the next episode.
See you later.
Bye.